Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto had been raised by Kakashi his entire life and how would raising Naruto change Kakashi's life as well? Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 8, New Kids. Deep in the depths of the village, in an old facility that was once used as the training facility for the once powerful organization Root, a group that was the birthplace of Umbu. Although their methods were seen by many as inhumane and repulsive despite the results they got in how many elite ninja they created. And it was none other than the third Hokage that put an end to Root, as many of its members were put into disgrace, especially their leader, a man only known as Danzo. He was an older man who was crippled years ago, his leg was shattered and he could barely move it anymore without a cane. Then there was the fact that his arm hung uselessly in his robe and half his face was hidden by the bandages, and yet despite that he never seemed to care about how his body was mangled. In fact, he still had a commanding presence, and those that underestimated him soon found out that was the last mistake they would make. Currently he was overlooking one of the few training areas that were kept in shape. Despite how the place was falling apart because of how little resources they had and personnel that were still loyal to Root, the place was a shadow of its former glory. Dirt piled up, whole areas were no longer in use, the place was depressing and cold feeling to it all, but that didn't matter to those that worked here. They were Root, and such little things like that mattered little to those that saw themselves as true shinobi. Danzo was on a balcony looking as a few of the youths that he still had were put through their training. It was brutal as always, with no mercy shown, and any hint of emotion was punished. A true ninja had no emotions, as they only got in the way. That was the way of Root. It's been a long time, Fugaku, Danzo said, feeling the presence of the Uchiha leader coming up behind him. Sharp as ever, I see, the man said with little emotion as he looked down at the training. The boys and girls were pale from lack of sun, and a few looked like they were about to drop dead. But that mattered little to him, this was not his affair. I've been wondering why you've ignored my request to get rid of the boy. The boy is a possible danger, of that I agree with you, however, he could also be a powerful weapon in the right hands. The Uchiha gave him a calculating look. Is that why you refused to help me get rid of him all those years ago? Danzo said nothing for a bit. Yes, you were too hasty. If the boy does prove to be a danger, well, I have plans for that. I can already see that one of my students will be the most powerful of this generation, and if need be I'll send him against any who are a threat to this village. As for the boy, can you honestly say that a ninja with the power of that fox under the control of this village would be such a bad thing? Imagine just how powerful he could become. That's one of the things I fear, that he'll be too powerful one day. Fear, or is it that your pride will refuse anyone that is stronger than an Uchiha? The crippled asked, and saw the other man's eyes close slightly in anger. Somehow I doubt that you'll get your hands on the boy. His father is not easily killed, and he has the protection of the Hokage as well as other jonins. Even that bitch of a student of Orochimaru seems to taken a shine to the boy. Fugaku had never liked Anko Mitarashi. He didn't trust her given who her sensei was and the fact that she had embarrassed his clan with how easily she defeated one of his better ninjas in the Chunin exams. It had been a humiliating defeat for the boy, and not only his pride but the pride of his clan had been shamed in front of the entire village and of others. Yes, that is a shame. I'm surprised how those fools you have aligned with got so close those years ago with the two missing nins. Uchiha nodded. So was I. They used a lot of resources to ensure that no other ninja was in the area at the time, and had agents in place to make sure no one interfered. They should have hired better men. Danzo looked to see one of the students drop, and he felt disappointment. He had thought that one would last at least a few more hours as the boy was dragged away. The other didn't stop or even look. They knew they would be punished if they did. Yes, well, the past is the past, and I'm telling you now, the boy could be an asset. Just give it time. After all, you might be surprised by what the boy. Danzo said, and then turned and left. Fugaku knew he was being dismissed, and he only got two things out of this. He knew that Danzo wouldn't be an ally, but he got the impression that he wouldn't interfere either. He walked back to his home as he thought about the boy. There was a grain of truth that the boy could be a powerful weapon one day, but that was only if they could control him, and he doubted that. He would have to wait for the opportunity to show itself. When the boy showed the danger he could be. Then there was the other matter of his oldest son. He just couldn't understand him anymore. He was more and more distant with each day, and he couldn't figure it out. His oldest son was the pride of the clan. a testament to how great their clan was, and yet he didn't seem to care, and that worried the clan head. He honestly had no idea what to do with this son. He could only hope that he could figure something out. He felt a shadow looming over his son. Like something horrible was going to happen either to him or because of him. He couldn't shake this feeling, and that truly was something that kept him up late at night. Park. Naruto was in the park with Hinata again, and Naruto was talking about the training his dad was putting him through. He was just now starting on his chakra exercises, although he was having some trouble with that. But he just put it off as it was just because it was new to him. He couldn't wait to enter the academy and start his training to be a real ninja like his dad and the others. There was one downside. Iruka had told him that he would be teaching now and wouldn't be able to look after him like he used to. Apparently, he had been trying to get a job at teaching and had been taking courses and stuff as well as being an assistant teacher. It kind of made Naruto a bit sad knowing that he wouldn't be able to look after him like he used to, but Iruka had promised to still see him when he got the chance. He also promised to take Naruto out for ramen the next time he could, which in Naruto's young mind made up for a lot. One of the things he started to do these days was wear his new mask that Anko gave him for his birthday a few months back all the time like his dad. Although he still had to take it off to eat and stuff, but his dad told him that eventually he would teach him how to eat without anyone seeing him take it off, and even now to make a genjusted to make it look like the mask was still on and just eat normally, although to those around it would look like the food was just going through the mask. So Hinata, you excited? He asked her. Huh. You said that your mom is going to have another kid, right? Hinata nodded her head. A couple of months ago she told her about it. Hinata was actually excited about this. She would have a baby brother or sister and she couldn't wait. Although she wasn't sure how babies were born, but her mother told her a few things about how babies grew inside of the mother. At any rate, Hinata was happy that her family was growing. I bet you're going to be a great big sister, Naruto said, smiling. She blushed a bit. Thank you, Naruto-kun. It was then that they heard the yelling, and both young children looked to see a group of kids their own age that were being picked on by a few older boys. Naruto glared at the scene. He had to deal with bullies himself, and so he had a real hatred for that kind of thing. To him, bullies got whatever came to them, and he also couldn't just sit by and watch this or let it happen. Hold on, Hinata, looks like we're going to have to wait a bit to play. Hinata's eyes grew as he walked off to the group. She looked around but didn't see any adults around, and she was worried that Naruto would get hurt, and she didn't want to see him hurt. The kids in question were 2 boys and 2 girls. Of the girls, there was a young blonde with short hair named Ino Yamanaka, who was with her friend in red with pink hair, Sakura Hanaro. There were 2 other boys as well, a slightly pudgy kid who was eating named Koji Akimichi, and finally a lazy kid that was just looking up at the sky named Shikamaru Nara. The other older kids were just picking on the kids that they had seen. Although Sakura was still shy and insecure, Ino however was angry that some stupid kids were picking on them just because they were older. What's your problems? Ino yelled out at them. Your ugly face, blondie, and maybe with the girl with the freakish forehead there, man, did you get hit by the ugly stick or something? Sakura was very sensitive about her looks, especially her forehead. She did kind of have a slightly larger one, and all the kids would make fun of it. It wasn't until Ino came along and became her friend and helped her through her insecurities a bit. Also, she started to make more friends lately, although she was still learning to have more self-confidence like Ino. Hearing those words hurt like hell, and she felt the sting of tears in her eyes at the moment. You guys are so troublesome, Shikamaru sighed. He was just trying to watch some clouds. He didn't even want to go to the park. It was always too noisy, and there were too many trees that got in the way of all the good cloud watching spots. The only reason he was here was because his dad wanted him to spend time with Ino and Koji. Koji he didn't mind, he was a good friend, but Ino on the other hand was very bossy, and he already had one bossy female in his life. The last thing he needed was someone like his mother, but she was the daughter of his father's best friend and teammate. When he got here, there was that pink-haired girl Sakura that Ino had been hanging out with lately. She wasn't so bad, so she was less troublesome than Ino. There was a shadow over him, and he looked up to see one of the boys looking over him. What was that pineapple head? Shikamaru just sighed. He just wanted to watch clouds. Was that so much to ask in life? Hey, leave him alone, you jerk! Ino yelled out with a raised fist. Or what? You going to hit me, little girl? He laughed. I think she will, and I think I like to help. The new voice drew the attention of everyone, and there on the slide next to the bully over Shikamaru was a boy sitting on the top. He had on black shorts with an orange shirt with a black spiral symbol on the front. He had strange blue eyes, wild blonde hair, and was wearing a mask too. Who the hell are you, punk? The mystery boy just shrugged. Name's Naruto, and you better leave if you know what's good for you. Kick the kid's ass. One of the bully's friend yelled out. Yeah, and take his mask off, maybe we can make him eat it. Another yelled. He looked up at the kid with a grin. So the big bad hero wants to help out, huh? Well, come down here then and get a beating. Naruto grinned under his mask. Okay, if you say so. He then quickly launched himself down the chute and slammed into the older boy's stomach with his 2 feet. The boy was launched off the ground from the blow and landed coughing and gasping for breath as the air was knocked out of him. There was a pause as everyone was surprised by the quick move. Naruto got into a basic fighting stance his dad taught him and waved the boys in. Ino saw how this boy was helping them out and grinned as she saw him drop the older boy. She had no idea who he was, but he had style, that was for sure. When she noticed the bully next to her was about to move, she stomped on his foot. He cried out, and then while hopping on one foot she kicked him hard in the shin of the other leg. The boy fell to the ground holding both legs in pain. Naruto now only had 2 boys to deal with as he saw the blonde take out one of the others. The nearest boy tried to grab Naruto, so he grabbed the wrist to the boy and with his other hand jabbed a finger in the right spot in the throat area. Just where the rib cage starts there is a small curve and there is a nerve there. He pressed down and the boy's legs gave out in a second. He quickly placed that hand around the back of the neck of the boy and twisted and threw the boy head first into the stomach of the last one. Naruto was actually surprised how well that move worked. Sure, he trained with his dad and stuff, but that was the first time that he actually used it in real life. If it wasn't for the mask, his surprise would have been apparent on his face. Ino, however, decided to push it. Alright, you boys want more of a butt kicking? Because only 2 of us were fighting, you want all of us. Troublesome, Shikamaru sighed. Why should I get involved? Shut it, you lazy jerk. Ino shouted. I'd listen to her if I were you guys, Naruto said, crossing his arms over his chest. The bullies decided that being embarrassed by a bunch of kids younger than them was bad enough for the day, as they picked themselves up and tried to make a dignified retreat. Not that it worked. Naruto laughed as the boys went away. He noticed the blonde girl walk up to him. Hey, thanks. Naruto scratched the back of his head and smiled. Hey, no problems, I hate bullies and I can't stand to see it happen. Well, thanks. I'm Ino, by the way. This is Sakura. The lazy boy on the floor is Shikamaru and the kid that is still eating is Koji, Ino said, pointing everyone out. Cool, I'm Naruto and this is, hold on. They watched the boy look around and then seemed to find someone behind the slide. Come on out, it's okay, Hinata. He pulled out a girl with short hair and pearl-like eyes who seemed very nervous as she was looking down at the ground and fidgeting with her fingers. Ino could already see this girl was like Sakura, actually maybe a bit worse off so. This is my very best friend Hinata, well, say hello. Oh. Hello. She gave a small bow to the group. So you guys want to join us? Ino asked and both kids' faces lit up at that. She had no way of knowing that they had no other friends and this was the first time they were asked to join in. They gathered up together to get to know each other. Naruto was sitting next to Hinata of course, but he took a place next to a nice-looking pink-haired girl as well. Shikamaru was laying down looking up at the clouds but still in the circle, and Koji and Ino finished it off. So I got to ask, why the mask? Ino asked Naruto. He just shrugged. My aunt Anko gave it to me on my birthday, and my dad wears one and he told me that his dad wore one too. So, well, it's kind of like family tradition, besides I think it looks cool and I am going to be a ninja like my dad too. So, you're from a ninja family? Sakura asked. Her family didn't have many ninjas in it. In fact, the last ninja was her grandfather and her father who used to be, but he retired soon after she was born, something about wanting to see her grow up and not wanting to miss out on it. Yep. And so at Hinata too, we're going to join the Ninja Academy as soon as we can. Cool, so am I. My dad as well as Lazy Boy and Koji here come from ninja families too. Ino said smiling. Hinata looked to Sakura. What about you? Are you going to? Sakura had been thinking about it. All her friends were going to join up and she wanted to follow in the path of her family as well. She had no idea what else she did want to do with her life and she kind of would like to carry on the family tradition. Yes, I think I am. Of course, she is and she'll be a good one too. Ino smiled at her friend who blushed a bit. Hey, you want a snack? Koji asked Naruto and he did consider it. But he didn't want to pull his mask down. With family it was okay and maybe Hinata too since she actually knew what his face looked like. I'm good but thanks, so do you guys want to play? That day both Hinata and Naruto made 4 new friends that day. Hinata was shy but she soon found a friend in Sakura and Ino especially since they were the first female friends that she ever made. Naruto finally had more friends to play with as well, and even though Shikamaru liked to look at the sky he did play when you finally motivated him to do it. Everything was going really well too, Naruto kind of like the new friends he made. Koji seemed to like food and he told the boy about the best ramen stand in town while he told Naruto about the best barbecue place as well. He watched clouds with Shikamaru for a bit as he picked out shapes out of the clouds. Ino was kind of bossy but he didn't mind. Sakura was very nice as well, she was kind of like Hinata but after a bit she seemed to open up to them. Unfortunately, 3 adults came walking up, a large man, a man with scars on his face and a man with long blonde hair. Hey kids, time to go home. The blonde one said. Ah, Daddy, we were having fun with our new friends, Ino whined. Ino's father looked to see the 2 new faces. He knew a Hyuga when he saw one although it was strange to see one playing with other kids. He didn't see any seal on the kid's forehead either so that might mean she was either too young or a main branch member which was even stranger. So, who are these 2 then? The large man asked as Koji went up to his dad. I'm Naruto Hatake and this is Hinata Hyuga, Naruto said smiling up at the adults hoping they would be nice. Sometimes some adults looked at him strangely and he didn't like how they looked at him. Hatake. Shikaku Nara said looking at the boy. Huh, must be Kakashi's kid, with that mask it must be. Heard rumors of him being some kind of monster or something but what the hell kind of monster could be a kid? He's pretty nice, although a bit loud, Shikamaru sighed. Well then glad that you met some new friends Inoichi said to his daughter, Sakura we're supposed to walk you home today since your dad is a bit busy with work today. Sakura nodded and went with her best friend and her dad but looked back towards Naruto and Hinata, goodbye and I hope to see you both around later too. Hinata had on a small smile at being accepted by someone else, while Naruto had on a huge on under his mask that always seemed to show despite it being covered. See you later Sakura, Ino, Koji, and Shikamaru. We'll see you again here another day. This is great Hinata, we got more friends to play with, this is great. Naruto jumped excited, he couldn't wait to tell his dad. Hinata nodded her head, she was still shy around them but they made her feel better, less lonely in fact. All in all for the 2 of them it was a great day. As the sun was setting it looked like it was getting dark. Hey Hinata, you want me to walk you home? Naruto said seeing how dark it was getting. She blushed a bit, why you don't have to do that Naruto-kun. Oh, come on, I never get to see your home and it's getting late and it might rain. My dad's off on a mission and might not be back home until it's late anyway. So, come on, let's go. He grabbed her hand making her blush very red as she felt kind of strange. She felt like her stomach was fluttering or something and was feeling very warm. She didn't understand why she got like that but in a strange way it was kind of nice too as Naruto nearly dragged her home. Uchiha compound. Itachi Uchiha should have been a happy person. Here he was the youngest member to make Umbu captain, a prodigy, and pride of his whole clan, someone that many admired and respected. But was he happy? The thing was he could rarely remember being truly happy in life, things just came too easily to him. There was no challenge here and the only amusement was from his best, and only friend, Shisui, but that wasn't much. In fact, sometimes he wondered why he was friends with him at all but there was just something about him that he actually liked. It was hard for him, he couldn't really relate to anyone these days, the closest were maybe his little brother and his best friend. He mentally sighed walking the halls, he felt like his talents were being wasted, he was said to be the strongest ninja in the clan and maybe soon in the whole village but what did that truly mean? Was there anyone out there that could pose a challenge to him? It was so dull to just cut through his enemies so easily, it was almost maddening actually. He came to the outdoors training area only to see his little brother training again, only he noticed a bit more of a fire burning in his little brother. This actually piqued his interests as he walked over to him. The punching block looked like it was nearly about to start splintering a little, and his brother's knuckles seemed to be bleeding a bit. "So, what's gotten you into such a state?" he calmly asked. Sasuke was surprised, not noticing his older brother until that moment. "It's nothing." Itachi raised a single eyebrow at this. "I don't believe that for a second." Sasuke was silent for a moment. "I want to be better than you." "Oh. Everyone looks at you, everyone sees you but me, I might as well be a ghost." Sasuke's anger filled him a bit and his older brother saw the look of anger in his eyes. "Interesting." Itachi looked at the board and then to his little brother. Itachi believed that emotions were a weakness that needed to be either controlled or cut out of you. They only hindered you, but apparently his little brother was starting to improve a little on his training with his anger. If this is anger, then I wonder what a stronger emotion like hatred would do? Which is stronger, no emotions or filled with them? It was an interesting question to Itachi, which would make the better ninja. He looked at his little brother and decided that he would watch his progress and see how this would affect his brother, to see if maybe one day he could be an equal to him. After all, out of all the clan members it was Sasuke that trained the hardest and the most. If anyone even had a chance it would be his little brother. "Well then, give them a reason to see you," Itachi said to a surprised Sasuke. "You're an Uchiha, so start acting like one. You want to prove your worth, then get stronger. Because what is the point of power if you can't use it?" With that he left and heard the sounds of his little brother training harder than before. He almost smirked at the sounds. But he quickly put that away. After all, he had other things to do now. Being an Umbu captain meant a lot of work and he had a lot to do now. Although there was one thing that was troubling him, there were rumors of some missing nins that were dressed in black cloaks and had red clouds on them. It was a strange design, but the three that were mentioned seemed to be Class S ninjas. It was something he would look into after all. It was odd to have missing nins acting as though part of some group. Normally they were loners, but this group was somewhat odd, plus maybe they would give him the challenge to test his power out. Chapter 9, Demon Knight. Naruto managed to get Hinata back to the Hyuga compound before the sun fully went down. He got to the front gate as two of the branch family members stood guard and gave him a curious look as the heir to the clan was being led by a small blonde boy in a mask. They stopped at them as he looked up at them. He didn't know why, but a lot of Hyugas did kind of looked alike, kind of like Auntie Anko had said a few times. "Hinata-sama," one of the guards greeted her and casting calculating looks as Naruto. Naruto bowed her head to them. "Hello, this is Naruto Hatake and he's a good friend of mine." They both nodded as they stood apart and gave them room. "Of course, Lady Hinata, your guest is welcome." Naruto gave them a small look with his arms behind his head as he walked in like he owed the place with Hinata. He looked around forgetting about the stuffy guards and finally saw Hinata's home. The place had huge walls, so he never got to see inside of it, but this place was huge. His eyes widened in surprise at all of this. There were houses all over the place, gardens, small ponds, and everything looked perfect. There were a lot of Hyugas as well as they cast sidelong glances at them. "Wow, Hinata, this place is huge, so this is what a clan home is like?" he asked her, and she nodded her head. Maybe I should call you Hinata-hime, after all you're like a princess since your dad is a clan head and all, and this place it like a small country." Of course, he was exaggerating a bit with the size, but that didn't stop Hinata from getting a deep red blush at the thought of his new nickname for her. She looked down at her feet, not trusting herself to look at him. Whenever she was around him, she felt like she mattered. She knew that she wasn't the strongest in her clan and that she was viewed as too gentle, but she couldn't help it. It was just who she was. "Hinata-sama," she was broken out of her thoughts by a voice and was surprised to see who it was. To Naruto it looked like just another Hyuga with long hair, although he seemed to be a bit older than the two of them, maybe by a year or so. "Lady Hana saw you arriving and wished for me to bring you and your guest to her," the boy said to them. "How did she see us?" Naruto asked, and the boy gave him a strange look. "With her eyes. You don't know of the Byakugan." Naruto thought about it and thought about what his dad taught him over the years. "Oh, wait, is that one of those bloodline things? Oh, so is that why all you guys have those cool eyes? Hey Hinata, how come you haven't shown me that? I haven't been able to activate it. Why yet?" She looked disappointed in that. Normally someone from the clan would have been able to do it a year ago, but she was still struggling with it. She felt weak and she knew she was a slight disappointment to her father, who was the head of the clan. "I'm sure you'll do it, Hinata, just keep at it, right?" Sorry I didn't get your name." Naruto blushed a bit at the boy. "It's Neji Hyuga." "Cool, I'm Naruto, hey, take nice to meet ya." Naruto stuck out his hand to the boy, who looked at it for a moment before shaking it. Neji was just surprised by this Naruto person. He was the complete opposite to Hinata-sama in every way. He was loud, energetic, and outgoing. His shy cousin was a stark contrast, and he had to wonder how these two had become friends. At any rate, he started to lead them through the complex to where the main branch lived. He knew the place well since his father lived here, and so did he because of it. "Your mother is in the study, Hinata-sama," Neji said as he led them. "Why, you know you don't have to call me that, we are family." "You are?" Naruto was surprised at this. He's my cousin." "Hey, cool. I don't get any other family other than my dad, and then there's the old man, my crazy aunt and uncle, and there's Irika. But I got no family around my own age. How come you don't come out and play with us, Neji?" Naruto asked the slightly older boy. Neji was surprised by the question. It just wasn't his place to just play with someone from the main branch, although he didn't hate Hinata or anything. After all, she was just too nice to hate. But it was kind of an unwritten rule about how main and branch members had to interact. It's just not the way things are done in this clan. Naruto made a face behind his mask. "Well, that's just stupid. I mean, do you have others to play with?" In fact, Neji didn't really. He trained a lot and he had his studies. Plus, he helped out around the compound. There weren't many children their own age here anyway, so he just tried to fill in his time. "Well." Naruto smiled at that. "Good, you can play with us then, and to hell with the stupid rules, right, Hinata?" Well, Come on, you like Neji, right, and shouldn't family stick together?" he said. "It's just that I have a lot of training to do," Neji supplied, seeing that Hinata was in a bind, and so to give Naruto something in order to drop the matter. Naruto thought about it as they walked on, and then an idea hit him. "Hey, since Hinata and me are going into the Ninja Academy soon, why don't we train together? I mean, you're most likely ahead of us anyway, and you can help us, you can sharpen your skills on us, and we can still spend time together." Neji just didn't know how to get around this kid. It was like every time he figured something out, he would find another way. He sighed, trying to think of something else. Although he kind of liked the idea of training with others, there was only so much he could do on his own. But he was worried what his uncle would think of this, and then there was his father and all the others. The main branch just didn't train with the other branches, but Naruto didn't seem to care. He just blew out a sigh. We'll see about that." He hoped that giving him something that wasn't a yes or a no would get him off this. Naruto nodded, and Neji was glad that was over with. With luck, the boy would forget about this. They arrived in the study, which was larger than any room in Naruto's home other than the training room they had. It was filled with books and scrolls, and there, sitting there, was Hinata's mother. She had a tea set next to her as she had been reading something. She smiled at the three of them as she gave Neji a nod to let him know that he could go. He returned it, and that left the two kids alone. "So how was your day, children?" she asked. It was good, mother." Naruto threw his hands behind his head, grinning widely. "It was great. We met some new kids and made some new friends." Hana Hyuga was happy to hear that they were making more friends. "Well, Naruto, that's very nice to hear, and thank you for walking Hinata-chan home as well." It was nothing. My dad's off on a mission today and might not be back until much later anyway. Besides, I got to finally see inside of this place, and it's awesome. Plus, Hinata's cousin was nice to meet, if kind of weird. But he said that he'd let us train together since he's too busy to play and all." Hinata wanted to correct Naruto that Neji didn't actually agree. He said that he would think about it. Her mother got an interested look on her face as she thought about it. In truth, it couldn't hurt. She knew that her husband used to be very close to his brother before he had to take on the duties as head of the clan. He had to act a certain way, and although he never said it, she knew that he sometimes missed how close he used to be with Hisashi, but he could never show it. Sometimes being a Hyuga meant a lot of personal sacrifice, but at least Hisashi didn't resent his older twin Hayashi. So Hana got to thinking that maybe having the three of them spend time with Neji might help with forging a stronger bond between the main and branch houses. She knew that there was a major rift between the two and this might help strengthen it, and in Hinata she saw someone that the branch house members couldn't hate. She had seen how Hinata treats everyone with respect, and for branch members that had seen the ugly side of certain main branch members it was a welcome change. Well, I think that is good idea. I'll speak with Niji's father about that and set something up, Hana said. Great. Naruto nearly jumped and Hinata's eyes widened. She hadn't expected that, but it would be nice to spend time with her cousin. She barely saw him and at times she wished that he was an older brother back before her mother was pregnant. Well, I guess I'll be off then. Naruto made for the door. Naruto, since you walked my daughter home, why don't you stay for supper? Naruto stopped in place. Huh? You serious? Always. Besides, my husband is entertaining an envoy from the hidden village of Cloud tonight and I don't feel like showing up to that. So it will just be the three of us. Hana didn't trust the Cloud Ninja that had been sent on a mission to improve relations with their village. He had been going around to all the clans, and although he was nothing but civil, there was something about the man that made her uneasy. That and the fact that with her new cravings she tended to need food that was a bit odd, especially for an envoy to see her eat. Besides, she and her husband agreed that Hinata was too young to attend such functions and she would look after her. Naruto thought about this and shrugged. He was kind of hungry and it was better than eating alone, so he agreed happily to join them for dinner. Later that night. Well, I must thank you for the wonderful dinner and for your hospitality, Hyuga-sama, said a man wearing the symbol of the Cloud Village on his forehead protector as he was talking to Hayashi as they left the dining room. It is my honor to host a guest to the village. I know that our two villages have not gotten along well in the past, he said to the other man. Akira the ninja from Cloud nodded, which is why I was sent on this mission to help re-establish ties with this village. Konoha has grown since the last war and from even the defeat of one of the multi-tailed demons as well. Not an easy feat, so we felt it wise to strengthen our association with this village as it seems to be gaining strength. Hayashi nodded. Well then, one of my people will show you to the room we set aside for you for the night. Thank you once again for the hospitality. Akira told him as he was shown the way to the room. Akira had spent a lot of time gathering information on the major clans of Konoha and especially those with bloodline abilities. The village of Cloud didn't have as many with those special abilities and they needed more in order to stand up to other villages. So, he had been looking for one to steal away so their own village would have a new powerful bloodline limit. The question was with who, and that was the problem. He had chosen to take one of the powerful ones and that left only two clans, the Uchihas and the Hyugas. The Uchihas were very powerful, but the problem was that the only ones that had activated their abilities were adults and thus a lot harder to kidnap and smuggle out, let alone just steal the eyes right from out of their heads. There was an added problem, and that was of Itachi. His name had reached even his village's ears and he didn't particularly like the idea of facing him, and if he did attack their clan, he had no doubt they would send him after him. That left the Hyuga clan and he could see they were definitely born with their special eyes. It only took time to activate it at a young age. While talking with the clan head and others in the village using a hedge to appear as someone else, he found out that there was a possibility in the young Hinata girl. She was the daughter of the clan head who was said to be powerful, but she seemed to be a shy and kind girl, in other words not one to put up much of a fight. He would have preferred a boy, since if he could get a boy back then they would start with the brainwashing and make him into a Cloud ninja. Then they could use him with the strongest female ninjas to make a whole new generation of strong ninjas with that bloodline limit. Same could be done with the girl. She would be taken, her mind twisted into a loyal servant of Cloud, and she would be mated with the strongest warriors. Her children would make for excellent ninjas even if it was a slower process. And if things really went wrong, well, he knew enough medical ninjusta to take the eyes out intake. Although the person would most likely not survive, he could have the eyes and they could implant them or study them to see how they worked. Either way they would gain power or knowledge on their rivals. When he was sure that the guards from outside the window had gone out of sight on their rolling patrol, he slipped out into the shadows. He had been taking note of the complex and had been trying to figure out which room belonged to the girl he had chosen to take. It wouldn't be easy, but there were other Cloud ninjas that had managed to sneak in as merchants. All he had to do was get to them. They had a cart with a false bottom and they could keep the child there as they were smuggled out. The real trick was trying to find the girl. He had eliminated many of the rooms during his tour and only one floor that was used for the sleeping quarters. So, he started there, he found one room that looked to be a nursery being built, as he knew that Hayashi's wife was expecting another child. The next looked empty, but it was the next one that he found the girl. She looked like she was getting ready for bed. He would have to be quick and fast with the girl. Naruto was walking home. It was late and he hoped he got back before his dad did. He really didn't want to explain why he had been out so late, so if he got back before him then he would be none the wiser. Besides, it was a nice night out anyway and he was making his way around the compound, it just by pure chance and luck that he took that way that night. One of those decisions that at the time a person doesn't know will affect their future. Call it fate, call it blind stupid luck, call it what you will. But when he chose to go this way, it set him up for a night that would change him. That is if he survived. But Naruto didn't know any of this. He was just minding his own business when he saw a shadow leap on top of the wall and then jump down not far from him. He looked like a ninja to him with some kind of shack over his shoulder. At first he thought it was just another Hyuga. Then he noticed the sack was moving a lot. "Hey mister, what's in the bag?" Naruto asked. Damn it, the Cloud Ninja hadn't seen the boy. He had been so worried about the rest of the clan seeing him he missed the boy. It didn't help that the boy wore a lot of black and at the night and the boy nearly blended in. "Help!" came a crying voice. Naruto's eyes widened at that voice because he knew it, even without the stutter. "What are you doing with Hinata-chan?" "Stupid kid, you saw too much." The Cloud Ninja threw several shurikens at the boy. Naruto saw them and dodged them easily enough. He dodged another set and smiled. He didn't know what this ninja was up to, but he was obviously kidnapping Hinata. He wouldn't let him, he would save her. He was proud of how well he was dodging the weapons. If only his dad could see him now. Then suddenly a pain hit his chest and he stopped, confused as his body refused to move. He was wondering why his body was suddenly too hard to move, but he managed to look down. He was confused for a moment because there was a kunai in his chest. He didn't see him throw a kunai, so where did it come from? Then his mind registered that he was bleeding now. He put a hand to his chest and felt the warm blood, almost like he couldn't understand why this was happening. His legs finally gave out and he sank to his knees. Akira smirked at how stupid the boy was. He hadn't known that those throwing stars were just a diversion to set him up for a kunai throw. The shurikens, although could be lethal, demanded you hit a few vital areas and he needed to be sure the boy was killed. A kunai to the chest would do that. So when the boy was just dodged his second volley after he judged his speed, he threw his kunai at his full speed, unlike the shurikens that had been about half his speed. He turned around ready to go and leave the boy to die. For Naruto, he felt time slow down as his blood was leaking out of his wound. He was starting to feel a bit cold and his vision was starting to blur. He could still hear Hinata calling for help and he tried to move, but his body wouldn't listen. I failed to protect her. Why do I have to be so weak?" Naruto asked himself. He remembered when the ninja took him and how afraid he had been. Guy had saved him that day, and here was Hinata in that same moment, but where was the person to save her? He was here but he couldn't do anything. I can't die, I have to save her. I don't want to die, not yet, I can't die yet. Naruto looked at the ninja knowing that he would hurt Hinata. He wanted to hurt him instead. Images of Hinata flew into his mind. Of the day they first met, how happy he was to finally find a friend, to his birthday, to all the days she had been with him. She made him less alone, she made him happy and he liked it when she smiled. And now she was going to be taken away from him, from her family, from her home. Naruto looked at the ninja with hatred, pure hatred. He had never hated anyone so much in his life. He felt warmer now, like there was a fire building up inside of him. "Hate!" A voice called out to him. "Punish!" Again, the voice, it was deep and seemed to growl out the words. "Kill!" And then Naruto roared. All around Konoha the chakra was felt. From the further places that were from the Hyuga home, people stirred in their sleep. Some woke up to feelings of dread. The closer you got, the more intense the sensation. People bolted from their beds in cold sweats. Children woke up crying, wondering what that scary feeling was. The adults, however, knew. They had all felt that chakra before. That dreaded killing intent was burned into their memories and into their nightmares of several years ago. The night that the demon came to them, a living nightmare that left its mark on them all, and now they were feeling it again. Many were so scared that the demon had returned that they couldn't move, remembering that horrible night. Others who hadn't been at the battle, who had been away when it came, or from civilians that had moved in after the battle, were never as scared as they were that night. The Hokage bolted out of his bed and rushed to his window. He could feel it in his bones, and he alone knew what was happening and that it was coming from the Hyuga compound. He quickly left to gather his Umbu and anyone else he could find. At the Uchiha estate, Fugaku just stared out his window in fear. The day that he had feared might have just happened, that the demon fox had found a way out of his prison. For Itachi, he was frozen in awe for a moment. He had never felt such power before. It was like it was pure power, true power, a force of nature itself. And a small part of him was drawn to it, that finally he had found a power greater than his, and he liked it, a power that great in his hands sent his mind racing with endless possibilities. In the Hyuga compound they all woke up to the power of the chakra and the killing intent coming off it. Hiashi Hyuga knew this chakra as well. He activated his eyes trying to find the source of it all. He felt the hand of his wife on his arm gripping it. Hiashi. I know. He tried to steady his voice as he searched, and then he found it. Out by the wall there were two figures. No wait, three. One of them was in a bag and... Hinata. What? What about Hinata? His wife shouted, but she didn't get an answer as her husband grabbed a robe and jumped through the window. Back with Akira the Cloud Ninja, he was frozen in place as he looked at horror at the child. There was actually chakra coming off the boy in levels that he only thought a cage would have. There was so much he could actually see it, but that wasn't what scared him. The chakra wasn't normal. It was red and it swirled around the boy, looking like it was alive. Then the boy's eyes looked at him and he knew that the boy's eyes had changed. He couldn't remember what they originally looked like, but there was no way he could miss those eyes. They were red and had slits like an animal's, but there was something else in those eyes. There was this untamed fury in them, like a predator that wanted to punish and kill. God, what are you? He whispered out. Naruto didn't hear him. He was in a haze of anger, fury, rage, and bloodlust. He pulled the kunai out of his chest and threw it with inhuman speed, sending it into the man's shoulder. He cried out as he dropped the bag with Hinata in it, and the next thing he knew, the boy was next to him. The speed was impossible for a boy that age. Then with Naruto's clawed hands he slashed the man's face. He screamed in pain as half his face was clawed, but Naruto didn't stop. He punched him in the chest and he was sent into the brick wall. It dented and his bones shattered, and Naruto kept on going. He wanted to hurt this man, he wanted to kill him. He began to punch the man and wasn't stopping. His prey tried to put up an arm to defend himself, but it was broken after several hits. You will not hurt Hinata-chan. Again. He shouted out between punches. Naruto. The voice of Hinata snapped him out of it and he looked over at the struggling bag. He weakly walked over to it as he tried to get the bag opened. He finally did, to find the crying form of Hinata in there. She looked up scared at him and Naruto felt the anger leave him. He felt the fire in his blood slowly drain. "Na Naruto-kakan." She sniffled. "Yeah, are you okay?" Naruto asked and she nodded her head. "That's good, I'm glad that you're okay." Naruto collapsed there onto the ground and Hinata noticed all the blood on his chest and the hole in it. "Naruto!" she cried out. Chapter 10, Between Life and Death. Hinata was crying over Naruto's bloody body when her father landed. He looked over the scene as he looked at the motionless Cloud Ninja also there. The man looked like a wild animal had torn into him. There was a slash mark on his face that looked like it had destroyed one of the eyes. His face was bloody and bruised. His arm was hanging in a way that wasn't natural either. He looked at the young boy and the blood-soaked clothing and he had to wonder just what kind of strength this young boy had to do that to a ninja. Hinata looked up, her eyes all red and puffy from crying. She had blood on her clothing and a bruise on her face. Obviously someone had hit her in order to stun her. His blood ran cold at the thought of someone going after his family like that. Father, please help him!" she cried out to him. He knelt down as his brother and a few of the guards landed onto the scene too. Hisashi Hyuga looked over the scene with shock on his face at the other ninja. He bent down and checked for a pulse. "This one is still alive." Hisashi nodded his head as he checked on Naruto. He didn't think the boy was still alive with that hole in his chest, but when he checked he was shocked to see that he was still breathing. He had a heartbeat but it was faint. He had lost too much blood as it was. He ripped part of his robe as he pushed it against the wound to slow the blood loss. The boy is still alive. Send for the healers and send someone to the Haytake home. Kakashi will want to know about his son as soon as he can. Although he didn't know that Kakashi was on a mission at the moment, he knew that his brother could be trusted to make sure that no matter what Kakashi knew of this. His brother was already issuing orders when a group of Umbu suddenly appeared and the Hokage himself came into the scene. All of them had rushed to this area as fast as they could. The Hokage was even a bit out of breath. It was times like this he hated being old, but he didn't let such things keep him down. He looked at the scene and he could already guess at what happened, but he had to ask, Hyuga-sama, what happened here? I'm unsure, but that man there was a guest in my home, but there was a large chakra spike and I found the boy fighting him who had my daughter in that bag over that. But the boy is losing blood and needs a medical ninja here fast or he might not live. Hayashi quickly explained. The Hokage moved to get a clearer look at Naruto and he was shocked to see such an injury. Take that man to the hospital, but under guard. He is to have no contact other than medical staff or myself, is that clear? He commanded to the Umbu, who nodded their heads. One of the Umbu stopped for a moment to look at the young boy. For a moment it was like the ninja was trying to look into Naruto as through to try and make sense of him. But he quickly went back to work as they carefully pried the ninja off the wall and they carried him away. The Hokage helped to carry Naruto into the Hyuga compound to the nearest room. The old man looked at the young boy with fear in his heart. He knew that the life of a ninja was a hard one, and yet this young boy wasn't even a ninja yet and could die tonight. He had seen a lot of death in his life, seen a lot of hardships, but to watch a young boy that he knew and cared for like another grandchild dying was hard to take. Thoughts came back to his new grandchild Kano Amaru, and how it would be to lose him like this. Quickly he and Hayashi stripped off his shirt, and although the wound wasn't bleeding much, he was still in danger. A sniffle caught their attention and they both turned to see a wide-eyed and very frightened Hinata looking at them. This is not a sight for you to see, daughter, get out now. Hayashi commanded his daughter, who flinched but actually didn't move. Just then his wife came into the room and a hand went to her mouth at the sight of Naruto. The young boy had only had a meal with them not that long ago, and there he was with a bloody chest. Hana, please take our daughter from here, Hayashi told her. Hana agreed with this. This was not something her daughter should see. She took hold of her daughter's shoulders and started to lead her out of the room. They left as two of the healers that worked at the compound ran into the room and closed the door behind them. Hinata couldn't stand it anymore. She turned around and buried her face into her mother's robes and cried her heart out. She had been so scared, and then Naruto had saved her and now he might be dying. Naruto was her first and best friend. He always made her happy and feel better about herself, and now because she couldn't fight, he had gotten hurt. Hana only held her daughter, trying to soothe her as much as possible. Hinata still could see the blood all over Naruto's body when she closed her eyes, and she felt totally helpless. Hana cradled her child. Every cry brought pain to her heart. She had never heard her daughter cry like this. It will be okay, Hinata, I'm sure he'll be okay. They're in there now, making sure of that. But what if? She chalked out. Something tells me that boy won't give up, and you shouldn't give up on him either, she said to her, and Hinata nodded, but she still cried. They waited for over an hour until the doors slid open and her father and the Hokage came out looking tired, as were the medical ninjas. She looked up at them with hope and dread, not sure if Naruto was alive or dead. The Hokage looked down at her and he gave her a small smile and a nod of his head. Hinata's eyes watered up knowing that Naruto was alive and rushed to his room to see him. Hana came up to them, also relieved to see that the boy had survived. How is he? She asked them. The boy seems to just refuse to die, her husband said in a neutral tone, but she knew that for him that was actually a joke. She hadn't spent years with him, not knowing how he hid his humor at times. Thanks to his guest that is inside of him, Naruto's healing abilities are greater than normal. He should have been killed by that Kunao, but he still lived. The Hokage smiled, shaking his head at the boy. He's full of surprises. The wound is closed, but the medics want to take him to a hospital tomorrow, but he's out of the woods. He has lost a lot of blood and is suffering from chakra exhaustion, so it will take him time to recover. That is good to know. Hana looked at the doors to the room. If he hadn't been there, I don't know what would have happened to Hinata. Her husband nodded his head. He hadn't been sure of the Haytake boy. He may have been a bit weary of him, but after tonight he had a lot to think on. Hinata meanwhile walked into the room as the medics were packing up. She saw how his chest was all bandaged up and the red stain on the center of it all. He looked kind of pale and he had his mask off. She saw it there in a pile of his clothing and picked it up. She walked over to the small bed of the unused guest room and sat down next to him. She felt a few tears again and touched his hand gently. She held his hand hoping that he could feel it. He just sat there looking at him, watching over him, holding his hand in one hand and his mask in another. "Hinata-sama," came a gentle tone, and she looked over to see Niji there. "You should get some sleep after all that's happened." Niji had come to check on her. After what he had felt and seen with his eyes, he had been worried. He looked over at Naruto, puzzled by the boy. He hadn't developed his bloodline as well as an adult, but he had felt that power. It literally had sent chills through his bones, and he couldn't believe that this boy had been the source of it all. He saw the blood on the bandages, and his early assessment of Naruto was obviously wrong. There was something different about Naruto. He wasn't normal, that was for sure. A kid like him and taken out a full-fledged ninja, that was something that Niji could admit that he couldn't do. "Who are you, Naruto? Hey, take. What is this power you have?" I don't want to leave," Hinata said, and Niji was surprised. Normally she would just do whatever someone asked, plus she hadn't stuttered. "He needs someone here, and I want to be here for him." Niji nodded his head as he sat down in the room. "Then I'll help." She looked up at him and smiled as he gave a small one in return. He looked at the boy, noticing the strange marks on his face. They seemed to be mirrored on his mask, and Niji wondered if this was the sign of some bloodline like his eyes, and wondered if Naruto's father had the same marks. Mindscape. Naruto had no idea where he was. He felt wet and cold. He groaned as he pushed himself out of some water. Thankfully it wasn't deep. He looked around. It looked like it was underground with pipes and stuff. It was dark and dank, and he really didn't like it. He sat on a dry area out of the water as he looked around. "Where am I? The last thing I remember was..." He bolted up, remembering the fight with the ninja that had taken Hinata. He remembered dodging the shuriken and then a pain in his chest. Then he remembered that he had been stabbed. He looked at his chest and there didn't seem to be any damage, which was weird. Am I dead? Naruto looked around again. If this was the afterlife, then it was a major letdown. If this was heaven, then where was everyone? That led to the question, if this wasn't heaven, then that only left one other place, and he didn't want to think about that. He walked on, trying to see where he was and what was going on. He eventually found himself at a dead end with large bird caged with a simple piece of paper that read "seal" on it. "Great, I wonder if that's the way out." He muttered and started to walk closer to see what was on the other side. It was really dark and he couldn't make anything out. He thought he heard something as he got closer to the bars, and then he saw there was something inside of it, something really big. Two large glowing eyes just seemed to pop out of the darkness. Naruto jumped back as giant claws nearly hit him as they were stopped by the bars. "So, this is my jailer, how pathetic. What? Stupid boy, if you only knew what you really were." "What do you mean?" "Take of this seal and I'll show you." Naruto looked at the seal and then at what was behind the bars. He could feel the anger and hatred coming off of it. He really didn't want to let it out and felt that if he did, it wouldn't be a good thing. He couldn't totally make out what it was, but there was a red glow coming off it now, and Naruto backed away a bit more. "I think I'll pass on that." The thing roared and smashed against the cage, making Naruto jump. "You little brat. Open up this cage, you can't keep me a prisoner forever. One day I will get my freedom again and I'll finish what I started all those years ago." Naruto wasn't sure what he was talking about, but he was threatening the village and he wouldn't stand for that. The hell with that. "I don't know who or what you are, but I'll protect my village." "You? Huh? You couldn't protect that girl without my help." The creature laughed at him. "What do you mean by that?" Naruto asked angrily. "Fool, it's me that makes all your injuries heal so fast. Didn't you ever wonder why you heal the way you do? And how else could you survive a kunao in the chest? The only reason you are alive is because I need you alive, but the day that chances, I will no longer need to keep you alive, brat." Naruto had no idea what was going on. He was getting nothing but questions as this thing kept on talking. He never really gave it much thought why he healed like he did. He had figured that he just healed fast and left it like that. Did he really heal faster than normal? Plus, why did this thing need to keep him alive? "Who the hell are you?" and why do you need me alive? Naruto shouted at the cage. He only got a laugh in response. You'll find out soon enough, brat, but I think you are waking up now. But know this, we will meet again. The hell does that mean? What do you mean waking up, and why the hell can't you give me a straight answer? But he didn't get his answer. It seemed like the world around him shifted and he was back in the blackness. He felt tired, aching and really heavy for a moment as his mind tried to focus. He managed to open his eyes. He was confused for a moment as he was trying to make out what he was looking at. It was a ceiling but not one he was familiar with. He tried to get up but his chest really hurt and he grunted as he fell back down. There was a small muttering and a shifting on his left, and he found that his arm had gone numb. He looked and saw a familiar set of hair on his arm. He blinked, wondering why Hinata was sleeping with her head on his arm like that. Then his eyes widened that it was Hinata there. The last thing he remembered was the ninja taking her and a few other things. He looked at his chest to see his shirt was gone and blood-soaked bandages over his chest. My dad is going to be pissed. He muttered. Only a little, Kakashi said from his place silently. Naruto looked to his right to see his dad sitting in a chair. Hey, how long you've been there, Dad? Long enough, he sighed and walked over to him. It was obvious that he was worried about him. Don't try to move, okay? You are very lucky, Naruto. You nearly died last night. Sorry to make you worry, Dad, but I had to do something. I didn't want her to get hurt. Kakashi nodded and ruffled his hair a little. Scenes of that mission with Obito and Rin came flashing back. He had gone on ahead while Obito had gone back to save Rin. He always wondered how things would have worked out if he had gone back with his friend instead of moving on and then changing his mind and then going back. Naruto hadn't even hesitated and had gone to defend the young girl. I know, son, I'm proud of you. Now get some sleep. We'll move you to a hospital later so you can rest up. Okay, man, I had the weirdest dream too. I better not dream of that cage and that thing in there again, Naruto said before he fell asleep, leaving Kakashi wondering just what he was talking about. Later that day. There were some things that the Hokage hated about this job. The paperwork was one of them. Then you had to spend all day making up missions and trying to figure out who went where. He also would have to keep his training up, and a lot of other little things that ate up a lot of his free time. Sometimes he was so tired he just didn't want to get out of bed, but he had a job to do. Now he was doing another thing he hated, talking to the council. The council room was packed as many had spent the day in near panic when they felt the Kyuubi's chakra. Many had known what they had felt and there was much confusion going on, since the majority of them had thought that the fox was dead. Now he was in a tight spot. Many of the clan heads knew the secret, but there was no way to hide things now. There were some new faces as the civilian leaders were also present. When there were things that dealt with the civilian population, there was a group that dealt with that. Mainly they kept things like the businesses running, the regular schools and other things that the civilian population, this was known as the Administrative Council, or the Lower Council by some members of the main council that was made up of the various ninja clans. At the moment many were in a panic over what had happened last night, and there was still the fact that somehow the Cloud Village had known they had one of their own in the hospital, which meant they had Cloud spies as there was an official group from Cloud. It was just one headache after another it seemed today. Sarutobi looked over the crowd as he wondered what to tell them all. If he told them only part of the story and the rest came out, it would be bad for him. But there was also the fact that he wanted to protect Naruto as well. He wasn't in a good position, and from the looks of things some were just jumping at the chance to not only drag his name down but also finally to get rid of Naruto with this event. He sighed as he prepared himself and hoped that his wisdom would help him out with this. Hokage-sama, we demand to know what happened last night, one of the civilian leaders shouted out. There are rumors all over that the Kyuubi is back, that he was never killed to begin with. We deserve to know if our lives are in danger. This was met with lots of other voices that agreed with the sentiment, and the Hokage had to make a tough choice. I feel that you all now have a right to know. The Kyuubi was defeated all those years ago, but he was not destroyed. He waited for the reactions to that to settle down. The fourth couldn't kill the demon, it was too powerful even for him, but he did manage to seal the demon away. He imprisoned it forever. You see, he used a child born that terrible day as a living prison that would keep the Kyuubi sealed and safe from the entire world. Then what was that last night, and why were we not told? Someone shouted out. Some of the body here were told, but I felt that it was decided that the boy would have a normal life, even he does not know what he keeps inside of him. And as for last night, there was an incident at the Hyuga clan compound. The cloud ninja that you all heard of that was visiting apparently attempted to kidnap Hayashi's daughter. Again, more reactions as many casts looks to the Hyuga clan head. The boy was gravely wounded trying to save the young girl, and somehow he managed to access the chakra of the demon. Who is this child? And what makes you think that the demon isn't in control of him? The head of the trade commission asked. The Hokage sighed, hoping that he wouldn't have to reveal this, but he knew it had been a fool's hope. He is Naruto Haytake, the son of Kakashi Haytake. That sent many in an uproar, the fact that all of this was secret, and yet there was a lot of confusion since the name of Kakashi Haytake carried a lot of weight. His actions were nearing legend status, and he was one of the best jonins that Konoha had at the moment as well. Some didn't want to go against the copy ninja for various reasons, some out of respect, others out of intimidation. Then the boy is dangerous, Fugaku stated simply to them all. If he accessed that power, regardless if it was the boy or the demon, that power is not meant for a small boy, and if he can access that demonic chakra, how do you know the demon will not be released? He should be exiled, or dealt with before he becomes a threat. I disagree, Hayashi Hyuga said sharply as he stood up. My daughter was the victim of a plot by Cloud to kidnap her, and that boy defended her. In fact, he was gravely wounded in his fight, and not only did he save my daughter but captured the enemy ninja. For his actions, he has earned the respect and if need be the protection of my clan. If any harm comes to the boy, then my clan will take it as a personal insult. He said in a commanding tone, letting his words sink in. That surprised a lot of people, as the Hyuga clan wasn't known to offering thanks or protection to those outside of the clan, plus Naruto now had the protection of one of the largest and most powerful clans. Are you insane, Hayashi? Fugaku asked the man. Actually, I believe he is of sound mind. This came from the representative of the Abarame clan, another of the powerful clans. Although the boy's true nature is unsettling and his power if frightening, he used that power to not harm but save a fellow member of this village. Although the boy's control is not known to us, from the facts we assume that the boy is not evil. Is his power dangerous? Yes. Is he a threat? I do not believe so, at least not at this time. And what would you do to such a boy? Do we really want to shun the boy and possibly make a powerful enemy? Every member of his clan knew what that was like to be shunned. Not many outside of his clan could stand to be around them because of their insect partners. Well, I don't know about that, but there's another fact. This was from the Shikaku Nara as he was with his two friends. Although the Nara, Yamanaka, and Akimichi clans weren't the most powerful of clans, they were respected. He is the son of Kakashi Haytake, one of our most famous ninjas, and he's proven himself time and time again as a loyal ninja to this village. Hell, the bastard saved my life a few times and I respect the guy. And I actually met the kid once, and he seems like a good kid to me. So, the kid has my support. Besides, I've seen Kakashi mad and I don't think he'll take to someone trying to harm his son very well. He grinned, seeing the worried looks passing through several people. Everyone had heard of Kakashi and his skills, the only Sherry non-user outside of the Uchiha, who was said to have hundreds of techniques and a genius. Shikaku's two friends nodded their own heads, showing their support for the boy as well. He defended the pack, and to us that says a lot about him. This was from another clan, the Inyakuza clan. They were about the same standing in Konoha as the Abarame clan. The Hokage smiled at the support that Naruto seemed to have and decided to take this chance to capitalize on the momentum. Yes, Naruto Haytake should not be feared. His father is currently starting training his son in preparation for the academy. I believe that given the chance, Naruto will prove to be a valued ninja one day. The debate went on, but with the Hokage, one of the major clans, two of the other large clans and three of the smaller ones in support of Naruto, many had to give up on Naruto. Although the Hokage knew that the civilians wouldn't be able to keep the secret from each other, he decided to give Naruto at least a chance with his generation. He made a decree that no one was to mention any of this to the younger generation, making it a capital offense. He knew that many would be scared of the boy. After all, the wounds that the Kyuubi left ran deep, but he wanted to make sure that Naruto had at least a chance with happiness. The boy had just started to make new friends as he learned, and he didn't want the boy to lose that. Already there were parents of those that knew that had told their children to keep away from Naruto, and he knew that some that had just found out would do the same. But at least now he had a decent chance for making more friends. By the end of the whole affair the Hokage felt his years catching up to him, and he still had to deal with the Dim Cloud ninjas. Maybe I should just retire? But I still don't have someone I can entrust this job to. Oh well, hopefully I can keep this old body going for a few years yet. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.